What up, guys? It's Dom, and welcome back to another movie review. Today we're going to be going over and ranking The New Mutants. The New Mutants, released in 2020, written and directed by Josh Boone, 5 young mutants just discovering their abilities while being held in a secret facility against their will, fight to escape their past sins and save themselves. Let's get right into the 10 essential aspects of a movie. The first essential aspect is plot. Now, I thought it was interesting that they're trying to make a horror Marvel movie because the genre of this movie is horror. Even though it wasn't really too scary, I could see why they did put it as horror because it was supposed to kind of be scarier. And it was compared to other Marvel movies, of course. But I spent the entire movie thinking and trying to figure out what is this main girl's powers. Because the whole point was that her powers are creating everyone's worst fears, like bring them to life. And I understood that once I got to the end. And I kind of started gathering that from most of the movie, but they didn't even fully explain how that power works. They're just like, oh yeah, I think it's her, that she's the reason why we're seeing all these scary things. They never confirm anything. They're like, at the end, they're just like, yeah, she can now control it, so it had to have been her, but at the same time, it was a mess, honestly. And I watched this movie before, and now I just rewatched it. After the rewatch, I understood it a little better, but I'm trying to judge this off of first time watching it, and that first time watching it, I did not like this movie. I did not understand it. I thought it was a confusing jumble-wumble of nonsense, and that's just how it is. After rewatching it, it still got slightly better, but it's not by much. The second essential aspect is attraction. Was this movie entertaining? It had its moments. I thought it was good for some of it. It was pretty entertaining, but it could have been so much better. The abilities that Danny may or may not have, since it's still unknown, they're so cool. Being able to just bring someone's nightmares to life, that you can make such a good horror movie out of that. And they just fumbled the bag because it was not scary. It was interesting to see how her powers worked, but since they never even showed you how they ended up working, it just ruined the whole thing. It had so much potential to be a really good movie. The acting was a big problem as well, but I'm going to get into that in the actual acting section. But overall, they definitely could have made this movie way more entertaining, way more scary, just way more better. The third essential aspect is theme. So usually for these movie reviews, I can't really sense a theme unless it's clear. This one's very clear, so I'll actually be able to talk about it. And I'm actually they mentioned it in the movie at the end, so I'm going to show that clip now.
My father used to tell me that inside every person there are 2 bears. One bear is all things good: compassion, love, trust. The other is all things evil: fear, shame, and self-destruction. I asked him, which one wins? He answered, the one you feed.
And yeah, I thought that theme fit perfectly. It sends a great message. Don't let your fears consume you. If you don't let your fears consume you, it's gonna make you a better person. It's gonna make you stronger. It's gonna make you be the best version of yourself. The fourth essential aspect is dialogue. So this is partly why I really don't like this movie, because the concept's amazing. It obviously wasn't played out to the best, but it wasn't the worst. The acting and the dialogue is where this really got me. So the conversations did not feel real at all. It really felt played out, and just it didn't feel real. And that's specifically Anya Taylor-Joy as Ileana. Whenever she said anything, honestly, I hated it. It pulled me out so much, especially when she was arguing with Danny. And I don't know. It's just her character is such a cool character in the comics, and seeing how that's being played out on the big screen here for the first time, it honestly just ticked me off, because she is supposed to be a really, really intense, strong female fighter, and in this, she's kind of just like, yeah, it's supposed to be a horror, so obviously she's going to be scared at things, but that's not the problem. It's when she was talking to Danny and talking, trying to be this rebel, but she's overplaying the role. She's acting way more tough and everything that she needs to be. She's trying to really deep dive into it, and it was unnecessary, especially with the way that her dialogue was coming across. The fifth essential aspect is acting. And now to play off what I just said, obviously Anya Taylor-Joy as Ileana was Bad, bad, bad. I mean, maybe not her as an actor, because she did at least look the part, but the way she acted as her, the way she talked as her, it just did not work. I did not like it. It really pulled me out. But on the contrary, Charlie Heaton as Sam, Cannonball, for you Marvel comic nerds out there, I thought he did amazing. I really liked his character. His was the most interesting, I thought, besides Danny. But his was actually played out correctly. I loved his backstory. I loved how they showed his abilities. I loved the way he tackled all the situations that he had to, and the way he went against his fear. I thought it was awesome. He did a great job. Everyone else did okay, and Anya, I'm sorry, you did not do good. The sixth essential aspect is cinematography. Now, I honestly thought the CGI in this movie was really good. Everything did look realistic, especially the big bear at the end. I thought that looked awesome. So cinematography for visual wise was great. For emotional wise, not really. There were some sad scenes and scary scenes. Obviously, I already said that it wasn't scary at all, even though it was supposed to be, which is a big bummer. But there were some sad scenes, and it didn't really do much for me. So the visuals, cinematography, sure. Emotions, not so much. The seventh essential aspect is editing. So this movie is an hour and 34 minutes long, and honestly, thank God that they didn't push it to 2 hours, because it was getting a little long for me. By the time it reached the end, honestly, thank God. But to be honest, it did probably need that much to be able to pull the whole story through. There were some very interesting parts in the story that they could have left out, and that would have been a mistake, like showing the Essex Corporation, which is the same one that was in the Deadpool movies and the Logan movies. All these people trying to take young mutants and turn them into soldiers. That was cool, and I'm glad they added that. But the actual plot points that were very, very, very necessary for this story, some of them they were just wrong. They weren't supposed to be there, or they were supposed to be at a different point in the movie. It just bothered me, but that's really because this plot really, really bothers me. It's very confusing, and that's probably why the pacing seems off, because of how confused I was throughout the movie. The eighth essential aspect is soundtrack. So actually the soundtrack for this movie was really good. It had that dreary, eerie kind of music that horror movies should have. All the sounds matched the scene really, really well, which honestly surprised me going of how the rest of this movie really went. The movie's not terrible, it's just I do have a lot of personal problems with it. But overall, the soundtrack, actually pretty good. The ninth essential aspect is directing. So the director of this movie is Josh Boone, and honestly, I feel like he did have a hard task to do. I'm not going to crap on him too much. Turning a Marvel movie into a horror movie can be hard. But I feel like the recipe they had could have been so good, and honestly not too hard to make, which is, that part bothers me. Because sure, taking a big Marvel hero and turning them into a horror movie, that can be really hard. But you had 5 young mutants that most casual Marvel watchers don't know who they are. Me, as someone that loves the comics, loves all the movies, actually deep dives into all the small details, I knew who all these characters were, which did help. It did make the movie better because I knew what they were going off of. I can't imagine if, for example, Mr. Majoritarian watched this knowing nothing about Marvel, he would not know what was happening. He would probably put this movie even lower than I'm putting it. Because, again, this movie seems kind of targeted towards Marvel fans. Because without knowing the characters, this plot would be difficult to get through. But Josh did previously direct 2 movies, and they were Stuck in Love and The Fault in Our Stars. Obviously, I've heard of The Fault in Our Stars, but I never watched it. I also never heard of Stuck in Love. But, I mean, that's a 360. Those both are romantic movies compared to the horror Marvel movie that this is supposed to be. So, I don't really know why we chose this director for this kind of movie. I feel like there's a lot of other really good directors that have done horror movies that could have done justice for this possibility. Maybe they'll kind of remake a similar movie in this, and I really hope so, and they choose a director that has more experience in the horror genre to make this movie really good. But otherwise, I'm not sure why we chose Josh. The 10th essential aspect is time. Obviously, I do not think this is going to stand the test of time. The thing is, it could if it stays as the only horror Marvel movie. That's really it. But I know it's not going to, because that's such a great concept and someone's going to come up with a better movie for it. But until that point, maybe. But overall, I do not think it will stand the test of time. It's 4 years old already. I doubt anyone even knows this movie. Now, on to the reviews. So these reviews went just as expected. Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it a 36%, Rotten Tomatoes audience gave it a 56%, and IMDb gave it a 53%. So, I mean, yeah, that all sounds good to me. I understand why critics put it so low because of everything I already explained in this. But honestly, I really don't think this movie's a 36. Get that out of there. 50s, I think, is a good place to put it. I could be argued for the 40s, but I think 50s is a pretty good place to put it because, I don't know, the concept's really cool. The acting's okay for the most part, and the visuals are really good. So it has these good aspects, and I feel like it can't really be that low if it has any saving factors. It has a few. I could see myself rewatching it, maybe just to see it again. I don't know why I would, but it's not one of the movies I would never rewatch. And finally, the rankings. Where will The New Mutants rank in its year, decade, in and all time? Let's find out starting in 2020. It's the first movie I've ever done, so it's going to be first. It's until I get more in the 2020, it's not going to move. And now in the 2020s, it's going to be 7th, above Borderlands and below Beautiful Disaster. Now, Borderlands, it has some saving factors, but actually it has one, and that's the visuals. And this movie, even though it's bad, has more saving factors than Borderlands. So it was honestly an easy pick for me. Borderlands, I could rewatch it for the visuals, definitely not for the plot, definitely not for the actor choice. But this one, if I were to rewatch it, it'd be for the visuals, it'd be for the concept, it'd be for the hoping that I'm watching it just to maybe get an idea of what the next Marvel horror movie would be. But I don't think it's really hard. Borderlands is very bad. It was very boring. And for such an exciting game to be played off of, it was a big letdown. And it's below Beautiful Disaster. I think Beautiful Disaster is a much better movie than this. It definitely wasn't hard. I just think that Beautiful Disaster, even though it is a romantic action movie, I think the plot comes together a lot better than this one did. I think the characters are interesting and there isn't any bad acting in it. So it has all these really big qualities that's lacking in The New Mutants. So again, not a hard choice. So it'll be 7th. And in all time, it's going to be 32nd, above Batman the movie and below SWAT Firefight. Now, first I'm going to talk about SWAT Firefight and the fact that it's so close. It is really close. Honestly, the acting was the same in both. The visuals were probably the same in both. The concept was cool in both. I think the concept is a little better in The New Mutants. But SWAT Firefight, I just think, was paced better. The plot made more sense, so it was an easier watch. And I just think it is the better movie, even by that sliver. And it is the New Mutants, The New Mutants is above Batman the movie, strictly because I know it's because it's in the 60s, and I get that. The visuals aren't going to be good because they don't have access to it. But I'm comparing it to movies. Obviously, the movies in the past, unless they have really good plots, really interesting characters, everything is done perfectly, and it just looks bad because it's from the past, that's not going to affect much. But the thing is, I just did not like the iteration of almost all of these characters in the Batman movie. It's not played out the way it should be. The acting is very cringy at moments, and I just didn't find myself enjoying it. And I thought I really would. I thought I really would enjoy the first DC movie ever made, but I didn't find myself enjoying it. This has some parts that I enjoyed that I would be interested in seeing more of in other Marvel movies, even if it's not many more than in Batman the movie. That's all I have for The New Mutants. If you guys enjoyed this review, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and make sure to comment what movie you want me to review next. I hope you guys have an amazing night. Peace out.